Hey folks, I've got to tell you one more thing. Please watch this video right to the end in order to find out how it all turned out. Because, well, with all the modifications I made to my hoof stand, I am going to try it out and I'm going to let you know exactly how well it worked. Well, otherwise there wouldn't be much point in doing this, would there? So please watch to the end, find out how it worked out. Hey, welcome back, folks. Today I'm going to take you on a little journey on something I've actually talked about in the past, and I'm going to show you what I'm doing here, but I'm going to start off with, I'm cheap. Yep, I'm real cheap, and I want you to be too, because it's one of the mistakes a lot of people make when they get into horse ownership. I don't know, some people actually think, oh, you got a horse, you must be rich. No, I'm broke because I have a horse, but you don't have to go broke. You can save an awful lot of money in a lot of different ways, and I've showed you a few of them. Well, my modified lunge whip that I shortened down to the length that I like, it cost me not much electrical tape. Other than that, it didn't cost me a thing. I had to buy one anyhow. Well, happened to have a short little stick with a little bit of string on it, and so we tied a plastic bag onto the end of it. Pretty handy. Again, cost zero. Well, and then of course, I actually did an entire video on how to make your own flag. And this one cost all of, well, I don't know, maybe 50 cents to make. If you want to buy them, by the way, they're about $45 to buy. This one, we made it for about 50 cents. Okay? So you don't have to go broke buying all this stuff. I'm going to show you some more things in a minute, though. Well, some of you will remember seeing this thing before. I had it in another video. And remember I said that the disc blade and the metal pipe and the other metal pipe, all of that actually cost me a beer. Well, so it wasn't entirely free. Pretty close. I also mentioned how I wasn't exactly happy with this part. And I didn't like how it rocked so much. And I wanted to do something about that. Now, one of the things I suggested was actually making this part wider. But I don't think that's the key. I don't think that's the answer. I'm just going to tell you what I'm going to do here. I'm going to modify this thing without spending a dime on it, using all the existing parts. And I am going to add one more piece. What I'm going to do is on the top of these pieces here, right up there and there, where the strap rests on the edge of the metal. I've already used a grinder and file and everything, made it nice and smooth, so it should, in theory, not wear through this strap very quickly. Hopefully not in my lifetime. But anyhow, just to make sure, I'm going to take a little bit of fuel line or something similar, whatever I can find laying around, and put on a piece just over 2 inches on each side, slit it down the length so we can just slip it right over the edge to suspend this a little better and protect it a little better. And if it comes out just past the corner of these metal pieces, that also protects my tools too, because then I'm not likely to hit my nippers or rasp on one of these things. And I said I didn't really like the width. I thought it was a good idea at the time. Turns out, no, not a good idea. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to cut off, well, about 1 inch off each side. I'm just going to unbolt this piece, take it off. I'm going to chop this down about 1 inch on each side, drill some new holes. And when I put this strap back on, I'm going to make it a little bit tighter than it is right now too, so that it doesn't hang way down in there. And I think that's going to take care of all of our problems. It's not going to be as wide as I would like. Ultimately, I would like to actually do this with a 3-inch wide piece, and someday I might, if depending on how this works out. If I have to, I'm not changing this part. I'll just add a little bit to the ends of it just to make it wider for the 3-inch strap to give it support, and we'll try that. But in the meantime, we're going to try it with all this existing stuff. The only thing we're going to add to it right now is some fuel line that's laying around anyhow. We're going to cut a couple pieces and slit them and put them over the ends to protect this strap, and we're going to go from there. And I'll bring you back when we get this done and let you know how well it works. Like I said, a lot of people think having a horse is an expensive endeavor. Well, it can be if you don't do it right. But I'm going to take you into the tack room here right away. And we're going to look at some saddles and some tack and whatnot. And you could find out just what you actually need to buy and how much you need to spend. Because you don't need to go out and buy brand new stuff. Well, I'm going to get to that in a minute in the tack room. Hey, welcome back again in the tack room. I'll turn you around in a minute and show you what I want to talk about, because tack room is an important place because there's a lot of stuff in here. There's saddles, there's saddle pads, there's blankets, there's leads and halters and bridles, and well, it goes on. It's a very long list, but a lot of people think they need to run out immediately and buy all that stuff. And that is not the truth, and I'm going to show you why. Because what happens is, in many cases, people, when they first get into horses, well, one of two things happens. Either after a period of time, they decide it's not for them. They get rid of the horse. Now they got all this tack that, not high-end stuff, not a big demand for it, and most of them, a lot of them don't even advertise it. So there's opportunity to pick up stuff cheap. So a saddle that may have sold for, say, $600 or $700 new, you might pick it up for $300, and it's still in just about brand new condition. Halters and leads and bridles and bits and reins and, well, all that stuff, same thing. And it's just, well, it's just kind of the way it works is you just kind of seem to accumulate this stuff too. But I want to prove a point here that you don't need to spend a lot and don't always need to go out and buy new. Because, well, like I said, one of two things happens. Either they have the horse and after a period of time they decide it's not for them and they get rid of it. The other one is that they have the horse for a while and decide to upgrade to a better quality saddle, in which case their beginner saddle that they had is, well, they don't need it anymore, and you can probably get it pretty cheap. And, well, that's kind of how I accumulated, well, I've got 3 saddles. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about them, too, and because that kind of that applies to what I'm talking about here. Well, one of the many, many things that you're going to see hanging up in front of you there is a whole bunch of halters. There's quite a few of them there. There's also some reins here too. I just realized the reins are still hanging there. I don't use these anymore. I haven't used them in years, but they're there, and they're the clip-on type. So if you ever want to use them, somewhere in one of my cars I also have a bridle, which I also have not used in many years. But I keep accumulating halters. Do you need to buy one? Well, maybe not. Aside from the one that I use daily, there's also all of these ones that, well, some of them I bought, some of them were given to me, some of them came with horses, and currently we have more than enough for all of the horses I have all the appropriate sizes, and they're all in, well, good enough, they're usable condition. But I want to talk a little bit more about saddles too, because that's a very, very big investment. Okay, right here in front of you is one of my saddles. And again, money well spent. You cannot go out and buy a brand new saddle of this quality for what I paid for this one. This saddle was purchased, it had a few things missing off of it that we had to buy extra. So we had to top it up a bit. But I think by the time all was said and done, I'd had about $1,000 into this thing with all the accessories I had to buy for it. But that is actually not a lot of money, because when you're buying brand new saddles, let me tell you, $1,000 does not get you much. In fact, I think that would be, in my opinion, the bare minimum that you should be spending on a saddle, at least if you're buying one brand new. But hey, let's face it, sometimes you're in a hurry. I want a saddle, I want one now. Well, okay, buy a new one, buy a cheap one. But just remember, you get what you pay for. But cheap isn't always bad. Now, this saddle here is actually a rather inexpensive saddle that I purchased used. Now, I don't know what it was worth new. I have no idea. All I know is the company that made it hasn't been in business for quite a while. But hey, it does the job. Fits the horse and it fits me. And I only paid about $275 for the thing. And I did do a few changes. I got different stirrups and a different cinch for it and a saddle pad for it. If you already have a saddle pad, you wouldn't need one of those. And the stirrups and the cinch, well, that's one of those things that's up to the individual whether or not you even bother. So for well under $300, you could have a saddle that is perfectly rideable. Is it fancy schmancy, high quality? No, not even close. But it works. And actually, I should explain why I have this saddle, since it's a relatively inferior one, is because for when if I'm training and a horse decides to move when I don't want it to because I don't tie, if it moves while I'm putting the saddle on or taking it off, and the saddle comes off and hits the dirt, I don't care. Okay, I don't care. This is not a. That's why I have this saddle. I don't care. If you want to ride, it's there. Now this one here, well, you ain't going to get to see much there because I got it all covered up with a dust cover and a whole bunch of stuff piled on. I don't feel like moving it all. But that one actually cost a fair bit because it is a specialty saddle. And it still cost me significantly less than it would new. I think I probably saved at least $1,000 on that saddle by buying it used. It came with everything I needed, and at a fraction of the new price. Actually, it was less than the original new price, and that was, I think, 12 years ago. It was brand new, and it's in very, very good condition underneath the cover and everything. Which you can't see. That thing's in beautiful condition. It was well cared for. But this is just another example of, yeah, I could have ordered what I wanted because this particular saddle is hard to get. And I could have ordered one, but I saved myself a lot of money by buying a used one. I had to be a little bit more patient, but I got a beautiful saddle. It's a company that's still in business and very well respected, and anybody that owns one of them saddles is 100% happy with them. So I didn't hesitate to buy this one. I thought, price, well, it's a little steep for what I wanted to pay for a saddle, but compared to what I know a good quality new saddle goes for, I'm not worried about it. Now, going back to what I said earlier about you don't have to buy brand new. You can get very good condition used. And I'll give you a couple of examples right now, because in this room, there are actually 3 brand new saddles. None of them are high-end, but they're brand new. And well, I can't say what is going to become of them, but I suspect that eventually they're all going to be for sale at some point. Well, it might be a while, it might be a year, 2, 3, I don't know. But that one right there, that is a brand new saddle. That one over there is also a brand new saddle, and directly behind that one, on the other side of that wall, there's another brand new saddle. And like I said, they're not high-end saddles, but compared to what you're going to pay for a new one, you could probably pick up one of these saddles for about half price. And well, there's all kinds of, there's reins and bridles and all kinds of stuff in here that I'm sure that if you shopped around a little bit, talk to the right people, you could probably get yourself a good deal on a lot of this stuff. So there you go. You do not have to buy new. You do not have to spend thousands and thousands of dollars to get the stuff that you need to equip your horse for riding. Now, I'm not going to go into much more detail on that stuff, but let's just say you can save thousands. There's absolutely no reason to be forking out the kind of money that some people do. I've seen it happen. I've seen people buy a lot of things for their horse for no reason, just because it's cool and it makes them look official and professional and, whatever. They're wasting money to look good. That's what they're doing. So, just thought I'd give you an example. In this tack room, there are 3 saddles that are brand new that probably will eventually be for sale. My own saddles, of which I have 3 in here. That one that you cannot see, and this cheap thing here. I bought them all used. Okay, so don't think that if you don't buy a new saddle that there's something wrong with you. Absolutely nothing wrong with buying a used one. You can get an extremely good deal. even on the used market, that one over there, I got a good enough deal on that, I think I saved hundreds on the used market compared to new. I don't even know what that would be new because they haven't made them in many years, but real good saddle, can't buy it. Now, I'm going to go fix up my hoof stand and I'll get right back to you. Well, I think we got her beat. Show you this in a minute. Good thing we got it done when we did, because it's not very nice today. It's not the same day anymore, by the way. And today it's something in the neighborhood of about 8 degrees Celsius, which I believe is about 46 degrees Fahrenheit. It is windy and it is raining, and I'm going to have to go get a soaking wet horse and work with it in a minute. But I want to show you what else we did. Now, keeping in mind, like I said, the basic hoof stand we have here without the top on it, this item is a very common sight in these parts, but not all of you have a welder. Obtaining the pieces around here would be pretty easy. Where you live, maybe not so much. But if you don't have a welder or don't have the ability to weld, which I understand that, not everybody can weld, not everybody has a welder, not everybody has a place to put a welder, even if they had one. So, but there's a good chance that you might have a friend or neighbor or somebody that has one, so you could, and they don't have to be a real good welder, by the way, neither do you, because nothing on this thing is horribly structurally important. It's just got to kind of hold it together. If you had some really good JB weld, that might even do the trick, I don't know. But so you could do this with even not real good skills of welding. This whole thing was put together with a stick welder, not even a fancy MIG or anything like that. Was not very well done, but it doesn't need to be. But I want to show you what I did. I did what I said, and well, one more thing. Oh yeah, because even if you had to pay somebody to do it, I'll bet you it's a lot cheaper than buying one of these things. Anyhow, so like I said, I took this piece, I cut down both of those, I shortened them by about 1.5 inches, which, because they're running at a 45-degree angle, that means they're actually, it only lowered the thing about 3/4 of an inch, which I didn't mention before was actually another one of the goals that I was after, is I actually wanted to lower it a little bit. I found it was a tiny bit high. The only other thing we could do is actually chop this post down a little, but that's pretty thick metal. It's a lot of work, and I thought, well, we'll try with this. If we find it's still a little too high, which is possible, maybe I'll still take a chop off of that, but we'll see. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. First thing we did is we took 1.5 inches off of each one of these, which actually only lowered it about 3/4 of an inch, like I said, because, geometry, physics, whatever, math stuff, numbers. It's going at an angle, so it's not going straight down, it's going that way. So for every inch it goes that way, it goes an inch that way, or that way. So it actually, it went down 3/4 of an inch, right? But then again, we also added this fuel line under here, like I said I was going to do, to buffer against the top of the metal for this strap to make it last a little longer. Actually, and I don't think that's, I think if I put a couple pieces of duct tape on there, the strap probably still would have lasted my lifetime, but that's what we did anyhow. I had this stuff around. I bought it like 5-6 years ago. I was kicking around. This is brand new, and we just nipped a bit off. 4 inches is all it took. 2 pieces the width of the metal, or length of the length of the hose is the width of the metal. Okay, anyhow. So that's what we did. Then, well, the one end of the strap, we just reused the holes that were already there. And the other end, we actually made new holes and then trimmed it off. And when we mounted the strap, we decided to make it a tiny bit tighter than it was before, so it didn't turn into this giant swing. And by being a bit narrower and a bit tighter, I think it's going to work a lot better, because one of the other things that I discovered as I went was I found that the corners of this metal were getting awfully close to my tools, and there was, all it takes one tiny little nick on the nippers, and there goes a couple $100, and we don't want that. So that was another one of the reasons we wanted to put that on there. It's just a precautionary thing. That plus narrowing it, cutting this down, also made it further away, made it safer for my other tools. That could potentially, even though all this work cost me nothing, okay, it just took my time. but it potentially could save me a couple $100 too. And then one other problem that we had, I didn't mention this before, is that with this being a little bit wider, it wanted to rotate in the post a little bit. And being that it's a little narrower now, I think that the risk of that's going to be less, because more likely the hoof is going to be closer to center, less chance of turning this thing. But, well, here's what we did is we just took our base with this piece in it, drilled a hole. No, we marked it. We just set it like that and marked where the bottom of this thing was, so that we knew where we could put our hole. Drop that in, drill the hole through both pieces, and as you can see, there's a hole in that piece now. And what we did here, what we got on here, it's just a nut and a bolt, and this is just a piece of another bolt that I bent with a hammer. No fancy tools involved at all. And made a little crank for it, so we can, there we go. Now it's locked in. This thing cannot rotate, can't come out. I can carry it by the strap if I want. It's actually a pretty handy little way of doing things, I thought. The fancier ones, they actually have a groove in them, the store-bought ones. You can actually adjust your height of your accessories, which is beneficial. And I put the crank on there so I wouldn't need a wrench. I could probably unscrew that bolt right out of there, but there's no reason to. I'm just going to leave it right there, and that way it won't get lost. Oh, this inside one, I also, after I drilled the hole, I took a much larger bit and I just give it a light, not all the way through, just dressed it up a little around the edge, so that basically this hole is tapered at the beginning, which makes it much easier to hit with this bolt. So if I don't get it dead on line, I can just kind of wiggle it a little bit as I'm tightening it up, and it'll just drop right in. And there you go. It's perfectly lodged in there. And so I just thought I'd show that one to you. That way, when the hoof is laying in here, this thing is not going to move at all. Well, we can wiggle a tiny, tiny bit, but not enough that's going to matter. And it's not going to come out when I pick it up. But it is still fairly easy to remove if I want to. All I got to do is do that, and it's out. So just thought I'd show you what I was up to with that thing. So, and all of that cost me nothing, just my time. And this kind of goes back to what I said in one other video about how having a horse and working with horses and caring for horses doesn't always involve spending time with horses. Sometimes you're busy, you're shopping for stuff for horses, you're building things for horses, you're fixing things for horses. It could be the skid steer, it could be the tractor. Like I said, you may be a carpenter, a plumber, electrician, a mechanic, a handyman, just who knows. You could be doing just about anything. Having a horse isn't always about spending time with the horse. But at the same time, if you're willing to put in a little bit of time that has, well, not exactly horse stuff, you can save a lot of money. Like I said, this whole hoof stand, which is probably at least a couple $100 to buy, a store-made one, it would be the equivalent style. Well, the basic materials for the bottom part cost me a beer. My lunge whip, well, I had to buy one anyhow. The modifications cost me nothing except a little bit of electrical tape. The flag used a little bit of hot glue on the tarp piece, and then we eventually did put a piece of duct tape on our knot at the end of the string. So, well, whatever, 50 cents cost for that. Our little stick with a bag on it, free. Our saddles, all used. And, well, each one of them would probably have been half price or less than what they would have cost me new. And two of them were actually very good quality saddles. So that was a lot of money saved right there. And proper training, which is free, just time, allows me to ride in nothing but a rope halter and a lead rope, which is, compared to a bridle and reins and bit and Well, I'm betting I'm probably saving somewhere in the neighborhood of about $300 there, or maybe a little more even. And at the same time, uh, I'm a little lazy, so I don't have to change over from the halter to the bridle and stuff like that. So I guess the whole point of this video is I just wanted to show you one of the things I was working on recently, some modifications to an already existing homemade project. And I wanted to talk about how you can save a little money on tack. You don't need to go broke. You don't have to spend a lot of money on polo wraps and bell boots and shipping boots and walk into a store sometime and look at the many things that they could convince you to buy. And I have even had people trying to convince me to buy things in stores, and I looked at them and said, "You're an idiot," because they were attempting to sell me something that I knew was absolutely the wrong thing for the problem. They didn't care. They were only interested in making money. Don't fall for that one. Don't think that money is going to solve your problems. Time, a little time. That'll solve most of your problems. So spend some time with your horse, spend some time training, spend some time shopping, spend some time working on things. You don't have to go broke owning a horse, and if you're patient especially, you don't have to spend a lot on a horse or the tack. You can do it all for a fraction of what other people spend, and if they laugh at you for your cheap tack or your cheap horse, well, when they're laying on the ground and you ride past them, you can laugh at them. Well, as I promised, I thought I'd let you know how this all turned out. I did in fact use that hoof stand to do a trim, which of course was not on camera. That's just too hard to do. But I am going to tell you how it worked out. And for the most part, all of the modifications I made were an improvement, absolutely. Now, I don't think this thing is quite as stable as I would like it to be. Maybe I'm just expecting too much of this design, and this is basically the same as what you're going to buy. If you go out and buy a hoof stand that has a sling on it, or comes with one as an attachment like this, that's kind of what you're going to get. And I don't think they're perfect, but let me tell you, it's sure a lot easier than trying to hold a hoof up. Way easier. And not every farrier uses them, but most do nowadays. And I'm just going to let you in on a few things. Like I said, it's not perfect. It's a vast improvement. Everything they did, putting the extra bolt hole in to keep it from rotating, made a big difference. Changing the geometry of this made it much more stable. Not as good as it could be. I'm thinking in the future, maybe, if I'm feeling really ambitious, I might try something like cut a piece of tubing, just part of it, and make a curved cradle in there, a rigid one, and then line it with rubber or something like that. Maybe that'd be better. Well, we'll see. That's something that if I do try that down the road, maybe, I'll let you know about that one. I don't see that happening anytime in the near future, though, because so far this I'm fairly happy with. I did discover one little flaw in it that could be made better, and it's not going to cost much to do. But I did notice that the little, I'll bring in a little closer, you can see the little pieces of rubber tubing that I split and put over the ends of the metal there to protect the sling. I find they do tend to occasionally slide out one way or the other, because they're not attached in any way. They're just sitting there, and it's just the weight of the hoof that holds them in place. They should be glued in, and I think that is one thing I will do, is I'm going to glue those in so they don't move around. It shouldn't require a whole lot. I didn't have any glue handy at the time I put these on. That's why I didn't do it then. If I look for some, I think I actually have some glue that might do the job. Like I say, it doesn't have to be anything super good to hold it in place. Just has to keep it from sliding side to side. That's all. That's all you need. And that will prevent the problem. That will keep the sling up, protect it, and keep the tools away from the corners of the metal. Because the sling is actually, what is that, a 1/16 of an inch narrower than the metal? You know, so it is actually potentially, you could hit your rasper nippers on the corners if you aren't careful. Although with it being slightly narrower and higher now, the hoof sits up high enough that the risk of that is much, much less now. So overall, I'm fairly happy with this, how it's turned out. Could it be better? Well, sure, but I think this is probably as good as it gets for now, aside from maybe putting a bit of glue onto those pieces to keep them from moving around. I'm pretty happy with it, and like I said, all of this cost nothing. This entire thing. Well, the pipe it came with, this piece of pipe came with the rest of the hoof stand, which, like I said, cost me a beer. So that's how this all worked out. So in the end, even if you got to pay somebody else to do it that has a welder in a shop to do it in, I don't think it's going to cost you a whole lot. I can't say. Depends how much they charge you. You get away 2 beer. Who knows? Anyhow, that's my little story on how it worked out. Like I said, you can see the little hole in there that for locating it. I don't have the rest of the stand in my hand. It's too heavy. I'm lazy. But that extra locating unit there worked well. I put it in when I was doing the bottom side. When I did the top side, I took it out. Worked really good. It was very easy to do. Held it nice and secure so it didn't rotate. Overall, I'm fairly pleased with the results. I think we've got something that is definitely fairly satisfactorily usable for a while. Like I said, the only improvement we could possibly make is if we put something rigid in here besides the sling, but the sling does conform to the hoof quite nicely. So regardless of the hoof shape or the size of it, this thing's going to do the job. Not 100% stable, but it's not bad. And it's probably, well, it's kind of industry standard at this point. So there you go. That's our story. And we're going to use it. Works for me. Have a good day.